Howdy. Welcome back.
To the Get Lit podcast.
Yeah, you couldn't even say it right.
Podcast.
It's the Get Lit podcast brought to you by Southern Lighting Solutions. My name is McHugh David, and we are here, or you are here with us. I am here
He's hiding today.
with Mr. Tarek. No, they can still see part of me. We're trying a new camera angle. We've kind of got our sound set. So for those of you who are listening to the podcast, we do appreciate your patience with that.
This is me not pleased.
Well, we're trying to find the best.
Yes, we are.
And by the way, it's probably going to move a lot over, as we continue to do this show. But today, we're going to be talking about, we've talked quite a bit about, applications and things that we've done in the past. But we're going to be talking today about an ongoing project, something that we're in the midst of. It's actually going to be pretty great turnout for both the owner involved. We're not going to talk about who it is specifically,
No.
more so the application. And also, there's kids involved, and they're going to get a huge benefit
Oh, yeah.
from this project. So first, let's go ahead and say that it is a gym/school. We're going to be doing both. The school has a gym attached to it, which is
It's
how
a gym/school.
yeah, exactly. And so I can see he's going to be a smart one today. It's going to be fun. So, first and foremost, what I want to do is kind of walk people through how we handled this project. So we kind of got the lead, right?
Yeah.
And we went out to the site, and just looking at it from the outside, the owner had a main complaint was that no one could see the site from.
No, I mean, I've driven by this thing at night quite a few times, and I didn't even know it existed.
Right. So we already had our work cut out for us. But the big thing that we realized as we entered the place was that, this actually wasn't going to be too difficult, because a lot of what they had in there already could easily be replaced by LED fixtures.
Right.
That would go, but they didn't go one for one. So we'll get to all that in a minute. But, from there, we sat down, kind of got an idea of what they needed. And then we went to measuring. And
Well, sure. No, I mean, first we listen to what they want, what they're looking for. We always give them the chance to say what upgrades they're looking for, because usually it's, well, we want LEDs.
right.
And that's about where it ends.
Right. And, the interesting thing about it is when you're going, especially through something like a school, and there are certain, it's not necessarily a requirement. There are requirements, but if you go one for one from tube lights to LED, you're probably going to surpass those requirements in a very bad way. Not always.
Not always. Yes and no. But I mean, in this case, the school was built, I believe, in the 70s, late 70s, early 80s is when it was built.
Mm-hmm.
So they, they did a decent job with how they laid everything out, how they set it all out. I mean, you can't really make any complaints there. So I mean, it served its purpose, but it's now bringing it up to the levels that it needs to be at. And the reason for this, as you know, is when we were doing the walkthrough with our lux meter, nothing matched even the minimum requirements for an education area.
Sure. And what he's talking about is there's, a downcast from any light. It's going to emit light. And after a certain amount of time, there's a certain amount of, I guess you can call it degradation. I mean, light is going to diffuse as it passes through a space.
Right.
And there just wasn't enough light produced by those individual fixtures to give you that appropriate light setting for education.
Sure. And it's while they have to keep changing out lamps and whatnot to get those light fixtures back up to the levels they need to be, it's really not conducive for the children that were there, specifically because you had different panels with different colors, so they're just, buying different color tubes and putting them in. In this case, you'd have to stick with a single static brand, static model number, and not change it ever to keep everything as uniform as possible.
Sure, and what he's talking about there is those tubes would have, we've talked about temperatures and color variations before. Right. It's everything from your soft white, your golden glow, all the way up to daylight. And these tubes were just kind of all over the map. And sometimes, that's not their fault. They're not really supposed to know about that. That's kind of our job in a way. And a lot of times they're just going to walk into Home Depot, Lowe's, Stein's, whatever, and say, "I'm out of tubes. I need, I need a T8 tube or whatever the tube is. What do you got?"
Yeah.
And they're going to walk out with the best deal they can get. So as we kind of traversed this school site, we entered the gym and noticed what we noticed a lot. A lot of the high bays were out.
A lot of the high bays were out. Um, if you threw a tennis ball in there from one side of the gym to the other, I'd be 50-50 that you wouldn't see that ball coming towards you.
Right. So if two people were standing there, maybe passing a basketball or something,
Right.
one person might catch it in the face because they just lost the basketball.
Right. I mean, on alternative note here, just highly amusing was just looking at the ceiling and seeing all the little balls stuck inside the ceiling,
Right.
which was highly entertaining.
It was. Not so much for the property owners, but
No, but
and so looking at the situation going so far, a lot of this was sort of a maintenance issue. It's just hard to keep up with things of that nature because those bulbs are eventually going to go out. In fact, that was one of the main questions
Well-
they asked us about LEDs was, do these involve bulbs?
yeah. I mean, there was that. There was also the fact that they've had previous experience with certain LEDs, which just have not lasted for them. So, we had to go through the whole spiel and discussions and education on the kind of LEDs we're using, the drivers we're using, the warranties involved, to give them peace of mind.
Sure, and we're going to get to that part in just a second. The reason I sort of posited that is a maintenance issue on the inside. We went outside, and they had, wall packs and downlights on the outside. Wall packs are basically those brown or black boxes you see on the side of big metal buildings that have a downcast of light. And we were looking at them, and you could tell none of them were the appropriate fixture for just the rugged climate of Louisiana.
I mean, a couple of them seem to still be working, which is norm, but a couple were just installed so incorrectly that you could see that they had burnt out on the inside. Others had mold in them. I mean, these should be fully sealed, contained lights.
Right.
And there's whoever installed them really had no idea what they were doing.
Right. They just said, "I need a wall pack," and they threw up a wall pack.
Sure.
That's what they had. And we know we use a lot of industry terms here. Again, a wall pack is just a brown or black box you see on the side of industrial buildings.
Just a wall-mounted light is all it is. Yeah.
That's all it is. But they have some that are designed to be outside.
Sure.
And so obviously they hadn't gotten that far.
I mean, it seems like from afar, because we obviously could not get to some of these lights, they had the right kind of light. I just suspect that they really just didn't install them correctly or tighten them correctly when they put them in.
Sure. And so over time, or maybe quickly, according to them, it was pretty quick.
Pretty quick, yeah.
They just burned out.
Sure.
And so we had that situation on the outside. There were also a couple of places that just didn't even have a light.
Or lights installed in the wrong area where even when they were on, the light, light is physics. It's physics. You cannot throw lights certain ways. And
Right.
if there's a big, piece of corrugated metal sheet roofing in the way, you're not getting any light underneath.
Sure.
No matter what you try to do.
Well, let's talk about that for a second, because after we had walked the property and then we went through and measured the rooms.
Well, we had to because they didn't have any drawings for the school.
Right. So, under normal circumstances, maybe with a newer building, we just get some
CAD drawings,
AutoCAD drawings or something like that. But in this situation, we had to go walk it off, measure it out. And then we came back and you rebuilt the school, so to speak, in Dialux. We've talked about design before, and this is where that comes in, because there were a lot of benefits to sort of, I guess you can call it a ground up design of that school.
Right.
First and foremost was finding those kind of points. So on the back of the school, they had built a storage/shed area and had built a roof on it.
Yep.
Which of course you would do, right? You got to store stuff. But one of the unintended consequences was that it has now blocked off the two wall
New light
packs.
packs, yeah.
Yeah,
They just had changed out wall packs there, and they weren't getting any light.
right. And the question was why? Well, the software showed that the top of that storage shed was bright. You know, it's
Yep.
basically daytime all the time. But where the driveway was behind the building was not
Well,
receiving much
yeah, I
or any
mean,
light.
and you really have to show that to them because we can tell them all day long that it's not going to affect, but in effect, it did affect the light and like we've always said, the software doesn't lie.
Sure. It's numbers.
It's numbers.
And so from there, redesigned the outside, redid the downlights because the downlights weren't sealed either.
Um, yeah. So they had obviously your external can lights that they had included, but the light sources themselves that they had inside were not rated to be used outdoors, and that's just a big issue.
Sure.
There's a difference between lights which are rated for damp locations and wet locations and external locations.
Right.
You know, a lot of lights that you see classified as a wet location, it could be wet location such as a bathroom, but it's not necessarily designed to work in an outdoor element. And you realize that when you look at the IP rating, say it's designed for a wet area or a damp area, it'll be IP44. External should always be IP54 or or ideally 65.
Right. And as you could tell from these lights, we didn't pull them down and look at them, at least not yet, but we could tell they were not rated
No, 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 not at all.
for heat, wetness, anything like that.
No.
From there, going inside and doing a design, one of the things that I said earlier, and in some cases it's true, in some cases it's not, but a one-for-one replacement between some of these and an LED panel, mostly 2x4s on the inside, a few downlights in the entryway. But for the most part, we're replacing panels.
Yep.
And a one-for-one replacement can get a little bright. We were actually able to bring that total number of panels down.
Right. So when we did our initial walkthrough, I mean, they had on average 10 to 15 foot candles in the classrooms. And where they really needed to be was above 30.
Mm.
And when we did the necessary changes with the software, we designed it out. We actually reduced, like you said, the number of fixtures per classroom and the entire number of fixtures from the entire building and raised those foot candles levels up to about 35, which is perfect for kids and for education.
Right. And, the big thing I want to bring up at this point about getting more light in classrooms is, you and I talked about a story and we kind of went through it quickly. But when there was a test done at a school,
Yeah,
when, lights, you had,
not in the United States.
right. And we're not talking about guinea pig tests here. It's
No.
just testing
Well,
one classroom. Well, maybe in a way. But, one classroom had softer light. Another classroom had sort of medium level light. Another classroom had daylight. And you sort of did A/B tests across productivity.
Yeah, I mean, it basically proved what we all know about circadian rhythms and whatnot. The class where it was actually amusing because yes, we've talked about this before, but the 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 three classes comprised three different sets of students, and it didn't matter which set of students had the certain light. The result was always the same, always the same. With daylight, students were on point. They're working, at a higher level, um, at the 6,000 Kelvin, which is your normal fluorescent tubes lights, which is what you would see for the most part. Um, that was almost, I guess you could call it your placebo
Mm-hmm.
because that's the standard. And my favorite was just the 3,000. The warm, dim lights where you couldn't keep these kids' attention to save your life.
Sure.
And uh, it was done because when kids are learning, there are obviously some who are, I don't want to say smarter than others, but more more academically inclined
Right.
than others, and they went to sleep just as quickly
Right.
as anyone else. I mean, it played on the mind.
Sure. And one of the things that the owner of this property said is a big thing he's about is creativity and education. So we're trying to stimulate both of those
Oh, absolutely.
with better light in the classrooms. So even with fewer lights, we were able to raise the standard of what the light's going to look like. At least,
Absolutely.
granted, when all the lights were working and functioning appropriately, they probably
I
had
mean,
good enough lux.
sure. Yeah, yeah, absolutely. Again, you're upgrading from a school that was built, almost 40 years ago,
Right.
30, 40 years ago. You're bringing it up those light levels up to modern standards. So, no, they've done a very good job up until now, but I think students are going to be happier, teachers are going to be happier, parents are going to be happier.
Right.
And that's
Well, that's going to be a piece of the puzzle as we move forward with this project. We'll be marketing it on our Facebook and Instagram pages and things of that nature. But these parents are paying to send their kids to the school, and they're going to see the school invest
yes,
in that, and it's going to be a big
absolutely.
point of sale for them. So, talking about points of sale, we visited with them today
Yep.
actually, and went over the drawings for the school,
Mm-hmm.
and gave them the good news. We're going down from about 115, 120 total panels down to 60 to 70.
Correct.
And, going to be improving the outside. I do want to talk about one thing real quick. We talked about it last week, strip profiles.
Yes.
One of the easy solutions that they're going to have is they had one of those wall packs on the outside, and it's now you have a covered walkway that's blocking most of the light. We can take an IP65 rated strip profile, run it right along the base of there, and boom, you have a lit
Yep.
walkway.
And an aluminum channel.
Right. So strip profile, the profile is an aluminum channel.
Yes.
So that's important. That is an important note.
Do not rig it without it outsides.
Yes, because it's strip on the inside. It's what kind of makes it a very big utility, very easy to use, but you have to have a profile for it to keep it protected.
To add additional protection, make sure it doesn't fall down, I mean, it's not going to be affected by the weather either way because it is waterproof. It is weather-rated strip. But we want to make it look aesthetically pleasing.
Right. And protected from things like birds and kids throwing things.
Absolutely.
And so it will run along these two sections that didn't have any downlights. They thought that a couple of wall packs would do it, but it was just like with them building that shed. When you covered that walkway, you rendered those wall packs
more
useless.
or less. Yeah, correct.
So we got to sit down with the owner, go over the drawings, make these suggestions. We got into a point where things really started to pull together for him because it is a school. There's got to be some consensus among the people that participate and that kind of thing. As a lot of people in Louisiana have had to deal with lately, energy prices are rising and for a wide variety of reasons. There's going to be an investigation through the Public Service Commission, that kind of thing. But the gist is it's probably going to at least stay a little higher than it was. So we ran.
That's an understatement, but yeah.
Yeah. Well, for instance, this place that we're dealing with saw a 500% increase in their rate. Not just the bill, but the rate. So we gave him an analysis based on, well, maybe if you have this increase to what is the Louisiana standard and what would happen if it stayed at this high rate. He kind of liked the idea of going with the higher rate. So talk to us a little bit about going through that savings, because one of the things that's interesting is normally when we calculate energy savings, we have maintenance.
Maintenance. You have the labor cost to change each fixture, and they're pretty standard with the quotes that they provide through various electrical companies. And for a school, because they have their own in-house maintenance, while you couldn't really use the same value because it's not outsourced, you still have to put a certain dollar value because they're using their time to change those fixtures, to go get bulbs, to go get ballast, to change it out. You can almost estimate how long it takes and the hourly rate that they're paid to do that,
Right.
to determine that cost. So we factor that in. We factor it over the versus the lifetime of the LEDs that we're changing, the power savings that they're incurring just by switching from the fluorescent tubes to the to the LED, and I mean they had significant. They had almost 85% savings on
Right.
on a direct power level, and that doesn't even include the air condition.
Right.
Does not include any of the other byproducts, if you want to call it that, of switching to LED.
Right. And here in South Louisiana, from a residential standpoint, and it may be the same all over the country, most people in a residential setting are going to be looking at that AC running to help the bill. But when you get into a commercial type situation, when you have so many more lights than you would in a residential scenario, not only could the heat coming off, which LEDs reduce your heat, affect how often your AC is running and stays on,
Right.
but you're probably seeing a bigger electrical load from those lights than you would in a residential setting. In fact, you have to be.
You have to be. Yeah. There's no. Yeah.
So when we kind of pulled this package together for him, you're looking at a roughly 9-month ROI.
It was a 9-month ROI on pure power savings based on the rates they were paying and the hours they were using.
Right.
Yes.
And this is no bulbs replaced, no tubes replaced.
Nothing. Yeah.
Making sure that you're using the right fixtures, they're installed correctly, so you're not having to replace those wall packs all the time to get light outside.
Right.
And, all in all, 9-month return on investment and 5-year warranty. And you're also, these fixtures that we're using are very affordable.
Oh, yeah.
And, we talked to him about replacement. If he needs it, we're right here.
Sure. Exactly.
And so, one of the things I do want to bring up with people is with a 9-month ROI, after you get past that,
it's all money in your pocket.
It's money you're putting back in your pocket.
Absolutely.
And in this case, it came out to something between 13 and 14 grand a year.
Oh yeah, yeah. It was quite significant.
So,
I mean, and that doesn't even include energy rebates that they would get from
Entergy
on
a per fixture basis.
Correct.
To help them pay for that.
Correct.
Which we're also looking into for them. If you are an Entergy customer here in South Louisiana, they do have a light upgrade rebate.
Yes, they do.
That helps you pay on a per fixture basis.
So come on down.
Yeah, right.
To the solutions company.
Hey, well, I want to touch on that real quick. We walked in and we didn't want to overwhelm them. We didn't want to tell them, look, everything you're doing is terrible, and we're just, no, those panels are still good. We're just going to give you an LED one. We're going to give you an LED solution. It's going to lower your power requirement, and you're going to get better light, cleaner light, and
healthier light.
Yeah, we're going to give these kids a better learning environment.
Correct. You're going to assist in giving them a better learning environment.
Sure, we're not teachers.
No.
But we do try to educate folks on what LED can do.
Right.
And, in this case, it's going to provide the school with a huge benefit in terms of their finances and in terms of being able to provide that educational environment.
Absolutely.
So, giving it like a 2-minute wrap up, if somebody was listening to this and they were asking, can it really be that simple? And the answer is yes, it can.
100%.
We, from start to finish, this probably took 10 days. We showed up, we went through what they wanted, we measured some things out, and we gave them some solutions. So kind of walk us through, hit some of the high points for us. Take 2 minutes.
We did the walkthrough with our lux calculator. Sorry, our lux meter, just to assess the light levels that are existing. We got an idea of the fixture count that they're currently using. We drew up the building, in this case, in Dialux. We did the light design required to see the upgrades that they would need. We calculated the ROI based on the new number of fixtures that we had. I mean, they had to provide us with their electrical bill, and we went back to them with a solution. It was a relatively quick process, all in.
Sure. And what's amazing is that you don't have to have several sets of lights. I mean, we could go, most industrial buildings or even most just regular commercial with small manufacturing are going to have panels, wall packs, and high bays. That's exactly what we did. So this is transferable. It doesn't just have to be a school. What I was trying to hit on with that part was this process can be done for home, a commercial building, or an industrial setting.
Right.
And that's what we tried to cover in previous podcasts.
Right. I mean, upgrading your home, it's relatively simple. Usually we don't have to go this far. You would just do one for one replacements. Now, bigger villas, mansions, whatever, those are a different beast altogether, because those can be more architectural.
Right.
People might be more inclined to do something different.
Right.
So,
here it is. It's a project. We are currently in the midst of it, but we have now provided the solution. That's kind of how we get there.
yep.
We'd love to hear from you. Please give us a call, reach out on our Facebook page, give us an email. All of our contact information is on our website, southernlightinginc.com. As always, I enjoy spending time here in the booth with Mr. Tarek Alimedine, my business partner.
Same time next week, except we'll probably be in another position again.
Yeah, we might move it around a little bit. So if you're listening, you're like, well, I don't really care. I'm just listening. But if you are watching, maybe we'll change it. Maybe we won't. That depends on what my wife, the marketing expert, and what our graphics guy, Paul, has to say about this one.
Poor Paul.
Poor Paul. We do enjoy getting to sit down here and talking on the Get Lit podcast, a podcast brought to you by Southern Lighting Solutions. Give us a call to fix your lighting scenario. We can save you money and give you something where you can just put it up. And as everybody likes to say, tired of replacing bulbs, I just want to forget about it.
Yep.
Thanks again. We'll see you next time.